Welcome back, everyone. It's time to look at a second method for solving percent problems. We're still working on solving percent problems. That's our learning target. And as you remember, the percent equation looks like some number is some percent of another number. Now, another way we could do this, as you know, taking a fraction or taking a percent or taking a decimal part of something, you can do that by multiplying. And so, if we take the percent and we change it to a decimal by dividing by 100, and then we multiply that by the number we're taking the percentage of, that'll give us the number. So if we change our percent to a decimal and we multiply that times the of part, then we get the is part. So let's go ahead and do that. What is 60% of 78? And just like before, we want to identify the is, the percent, and the of. So now let's go ahead and set our equation up. 60%, again we need to change that to a decimal, so we're going to do 60 divided by 100 times 78, and that'll give us the is part. And so when I divide 60 by 100, I can just move the decimal point 2 places to the left. So now I have 0.6 times 78, and when I do that, I do my 0.6 times 78. I end up with 46.8. So therefore, I know that 46.8 is 60% of 78. So again, all we had to do, we changed the percent to decimal by dividing by 100, and then multiplied by the number we were taking the percent of, that was the 78, and we get that number. Alright, second example, 74 is what percent of 87? Again, identify the is, the of, and the percent. So that's the is, that's the percent, that's the of. Let's set up our equation. We don't know the percent, so a percent over 100 times 87 is going to be 74. And since I'm dividing by 100, what we can do with the 87 here is move the decimal point 2 places to the left since we're dividing by 100. Now I get 0.87. I don't know the percent, so we'll call that x equals 74. So 0.87x equals 74. And then all I have to do is divide 74 by 0.87. And we get approximately 85.1. So I know that 74 is 85.1% of 87. Alrighty, last one. 16 is 165% of one number. So again, identify is, of, and percent. The 16 is, we know it's 165%. We know it's of what number. So let's go ahead and set it up. It's 165%. So we're going to be changing the 165% to a decimal by dividing it by 100, or moving the decimal point 2 to the left. We don't know the of, and we know it's going to be 16. So let's change 165% to a decimal point 2 places to the left. So that's 1.65. We don't know the of, so we'll just say 1.65x equals 16. Then all I have to do is I take 16 and I divide it by 1.65. And when I do that, I get approximately 9.7. So 16 is 165% of approximately 9.7. You'll notice the equations that we solve in this one should look very similar to the equations we solve in the proportion. They're just a few different things in here because in the proportion, the cross products property makes you multiply by 100, so you get some larger numbers to work with. But since they're still all 100-fold different and still in an equal proportion, you're still going to get the same answers no matter which of these two methods you use. So now, pick which method you like to use the best, and then you'll want to go do some practice exercises.